my gosh, there's like so much stuff I want to talk to you about.
Fabulous.
Here we go.
I think that you're so incredible. And one of the things that really fascinates me about your journey is going from a record label and leaving that and going independent. And I'm so curious about, that decision, getting out of that contract. Like, how did you even do that? And then deciding, okay, what's next?
Let's get up, let's get on it. Don't you leave me broken hearted tonight. Come on, that's right.
Wow. That's a great question to start off with. Jeez. Nobody told me Erin was going to hit us with the hard shit right in the beginning. Look, it actually wasn't even that difficult. Looking back, you always have 20/20 vision. But at the time I was like, what the fuck is going on? I have reached my biggest dream in life when that was to be a pop star with a big record label, signed with L.A. Reid. I mean, this guy was responsible for TLC and Pink and some of my favorite artists. So it was really disappointing and confusing. And I was still working through a lot of my upbringing, the programs that I was raised with in Nebraska in a small church town. So it was like, it was really strange times. It was a visit to an astrologer, interestingly enough, that kind of started this roller coaster of what if I could do this all on my own? What if I could do this independently? I am corn fed from Nebraska. Like, what if I could use all those great work ethic skills that I got to build this thing on my own? Because I was already willing to do it. I was already writing my own songs, sometimes doing my own hair, makeup, dressing myself, and always just fighting the label for creative control. So I was like, damn, well, let's see what that looks like to go independent. And somehow, like I said, the astrologer gave us some tips. Like, Ellie Reed's a Gemini, so he was like, talk to him on this day, and it worked, babe. It was a miracle. And I'm so grateful to him. Looking back now, I'm like, he invested so much money in us. He really did believe in Karmin. So that was a blessing. But now I would never go back. I'm like, wow, it took a lot to build to this point, and it's the perfect time to be an independent artist. 2020 is the perfect time, but it is not for the faint of heart. You got to be willing to work really hard, and I'm happy to share any information that you need about that.
When you kind of got out of this situation, how did you envision what Qveen Herby would be?
It really took time. And I always tell people to be really patient. And I don't recommend, rebranding. It's funny that we called it Karmin, because the whole idea was this cool word karma was in the name. And interestingly enough, we had to pay that off before we could move on. My husband was really getting into producing music. He wasn't really as excited about being an artist. He loves performing, but he wasn't like wanting to do the social media, and like the way that you have to be an artist today is so different. So he started getting into production, and I started thinking, wow, if I were to make a statement as a solo artist, first of all, I'm a woman, right? And I'm like a white woman who loves like Black music. And I had no idea at the time. This year has taught me so much about that in itself. I had no idea what that meant and what it should sound like. And the label experience, they told me I shouldn't be rapping because they don't play rap on the radio. Now here we are in like, what was it, 2017, 18, and we did have female rap starting to get played on the radio. So it was a perfect alignment of that, gave me enough confidence. But it was the first time I ever called myself queen. Like, my self-worth finally reached a level where I was like, oh, I am that bitch.
Yeah.
and I was like, wait, this is you really just have to proclaim your self-royalty, and your higher self will step forth. And it started out so surface. It was like, I took a visit to the Gucci store on Rodeo Drive. I never shopped at Gucci before. I was like, well, why not? maybe I should. And that was
Yeah.
the first song that I wrote. When we got home, I wrote the song Gucci, and I was like, oh my God, this is the sound. This is Qveen. This is Qveen. I remember the time I wanted to be called Herbie because I wasn't ready yet to call myself Qveen Herby. Herbie was the mascot for the Nebraska Cornhuskers.
Uh-huh.
And I found out it means warrior. So I was like, wow, Queen Warrior, Warrior Queen. This is cool. It's very organic, and it took time before it solidified into what it is now.
Right. And I remember with Karmin, like you guys are very clean and no cussing, even in the covers. And, you know,
Right.
I went to Christian school too. So I have some of that upbringing too. And I remember like even now, sometimes I'm afraid of getting judged for certain things or for wearing certain things. And I know it's really hard to break free of that too.
Ooh.
And I'm sure like that probably played a part into your development as an artist as well, right?
Yo, honey, I thought I was a free bird. I was like, I went to school in Boston. I'm like, I blew up on YouTube. I'm in this band Karmin, but I'm still not expressing myself the way that I talk to, like the way you and I are talking right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way I talk to my closest friends or my husband or people in the studio were like, wow, I didn't know you were so like sassy and like real. I thought you were just like this perfect, you know, never cursing. And a lot of our music in Karmin was beautiful, but it was very safe. I wasn't getting to the gritty nitty gritty of what I was experiencing in my life. So it was a lot of that, like freeing my voice. And I feel it especially with my friends from the Midwest. It's we are so responsible and so clean cut and all these things. And then you realize one day, like, well, I could be a lot more myself or a lot more expressive. And it takes, I should have probably seen a therapist actually. But it was the spiritual books, astrology, numerology. I got into all these beautiful, like the geometry of the universe and and now I've come full circle. I went through a period where I hated religion. I was so angry.
Mm-hmm.
And now I've come full circle. I'm like, oh, this is what they meant in the Bible when they said this or that, you know? So I'm really much more at peace now.
So you guys went viral. You as Karmin went viral like in 2011, was that? It's almost like the 10-year anniversary of
For real.
Look at Me Now.
Look at me now, look at me now, yeah, 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 yeah. Fresh, what? Little figure, bigger than gorilla, cause I'm killing every jigger that try to be on my stuff. Better cuff your man if you with him, I can get him, cause he accidentally slip and fall on my crack. Oops, I said on my crack, I didn't really mean to say on my crack, but since we talking about my crack, all you haters say hi to that. I'm done. No, really though, I'm not done.
So is that the moment where you're like, okay, that changed my career?
Yeah, everything changed. That was all in one day. I want to say it was like April of that year. It was a very Aries day. It was like everything just happened. It was an explosion. We had no manager, no publicist, no label, nothing helping us. My cell phone number was on the website.
Mm-hmm.
So I had like Jermaine Dupri calling me.
What? No, Jermaine Dupri.
I'm like, wait, like you are like JD, like panicking, you know. I remember my husband and I both had jobs. We had to quit our jobs. We were like on the Ellen show 4 days later. I didn't even know the words. I had like a cue card in the original video because I didn't have time to memorize. We would do a cover song every week.
Right.
So I was like, shit, we're about to be on Ellen and I don't know the words to this fucking song.
Yellow model chick, yellow bottle sipping, yellow Lamborghini, yellow top missing. Yup, that stuff look like a toupee. I get what you get in 10 years, in 2 days.
Yeah.
It was
mind-blowing.
It was wild, but our lives changed quick. We signed the record deal. We had money for the first time in our lives. We bought a cute little house in the valley. We were like, this is it, you know? And then it was just like the label it was just a crazy experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So it just kind of like projected, I guess you got your dream at that point.
Yep. Everything I ever wanted.
And then you
Now
walked
what?
away.
Now what? It's like,
I know.
Jim Carrey said a quote the other day. It was so amazing. He said, my wish is that everybody could have everything they ever wanted, all the money that they ever wanted, so they could see that that's not it.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't believe it until you get there and you're like, damn, like I have money now and I'm like famous or whatever, but it wasn't exactly in alignment with what my soul wanted.
Yeah. And then when you finally got there to that point where you're like, okay, this is my new vision, this is the new path, like how did you decide visually what that was going to look like? Because I mean, one thing that's so amazing about you is that like your videos are incredible. Like the whole like aesthetic and the whole look of everything you do is so cool. And I'm just curious, like, how did that all come to be? Is that just a part of the vision, or did that kind of just evolve a little bit when you're like, okay, I have total creative control for the first time.
Right.
Like, what am I going to do with it?
Yeah. Where do I even begin? It's overwhelming. Because I'm also in this place now where I'm like, okay, I am only going to do things from here on out that are in alignment with my soul. Mm-hmm. Like Oprah always says, she's like, if it's not a resounding yes, it's a no. Mm-hmm. She's like, the power of saying no and to stop pleasing other people. Like she says, the disease to please is the most dangerous thing. So I was taking careful steps in the beginning. But I've always been a girl that loved like the vintage retro vibe. And I've always been this like sort of, a lot of the critics, I remember Rolling Stone said that we were campy. And at the time I took so much offense. I was like, oh, this is so embarrassing. Like they think we're corny, but he didn't say corny, he said campy. And then the Met Gala that year was like camp. And I was like, wait, I'm chic though. So it's like this attitude. And then I started becoming really obsessed with like the drag queen culture. I was like, this is everything. I'd always been a theater girl, mm-hmm. but musical theater was sort of, it felt kind of limiting to me because it was like, you could be an artist, but you were sort of reading a script.
Right.
And so I was like, well, how do I develop this character of like my higher self? How do I be the greatest version of me? Like the most boisterous, confident queen character. Mm-hmm. And for me, the biggest help was Pinterest.
Oh man. Okay. What did you type in? I need to start looking at this.
I literally would just sit for like, we have Netflix on, we're watching like whatever show was at the time, like Breaking Bad or something. And I would just be hours on there, like, vintage, astronaut Vogue models. Like I would just find weird shoots and I'd throw them into folders on my Pinterest. Like, okay, I know this is going to be a music video someday. Mm-hmm. I know this is going to be a music video. And it took time. Like, I know last year I did a bunch of, like, I love to draw. So I'll draw like little symbols, like visual cues that represent my brand. So I'd be like gloves, like dead roses, bats, like anything creepy and bougie and like mob wife. I even have like a mood board with 9 words that like define who Qveen Herby is. And they're always changing, but you're sort of always like getting closer and more refined every day. And I found out later that's what building a brand is.
Really?
It's just like compiling visual cues and then words that make up this beautiful fantasy world of your own making. Mm-hmm. And it's magical because then when people see hot pizza ass, they're like, oh, I know exactly what it is because I saw the dripping cheese and I saw the pepperonis and I saw, well, obviously turquoise and lime green is what you said. So like, that's your starting point. Yeah. And that stuff like gets me really excited. So I started mentoring other people and now I'm working with like a couple people in downtown LA who have like cannabis brands. And they're like, how do we define ourselves visually? And I'm like, damn, I'm really a branding bitch now.
That's awesome.
It's so fun,
I need to work with you. I'm
like, damn, I should just
advice.
Like, yes, mentoring, like I love it.
That's so cool. Yeah, that's one of my favorite things. Like every video, I'm always just like, "Oh shit." I remember I was when I found out you were going to do this podcast, I was so excited and I had one of my friends over and I was showing them your video for Sade in the 90s. And he knew exactly who you were and he was like, "Oh my gosh, watch Big Dick Energy."
Big dick energy, never let a fake call get in front of me. Bitch, you better let go, you can't take the heat. That's my energy, big dick energy.
And then I was like, "Oh my God, I love this." Like every video is just so cool. Like I never get bored of watching what you do.
I love that. And those particular visuals, I have to thank Kayla Hudson and Eric Lucky, who are my creative directors on those videos, were so incredible. So in the beginning, you always want to surround yourself with people that you trust, that you admire. If you're lucky enough to get people, lucky, no pun intended, to get people that you respect and that you admire. I mean, I would call people and they would answer. And I was like, okay, the universe is guiding me to work with these people. And of course I told them kind of what I wanted, but a lot of those visuals were my team. I mean, I have an amazing team around me, Alex included. He's been on all those shoots.
That's so cool. So these weren't people that you knew before, you just like saw their work and reached out to them?
Kayla, I had like developed a friendship with, and eventually she was like, "Hey, I'd like to creative direct your videos." And I was like, "Excuse me?"
Oh,
So that was perfect. She did Sade in the 90s and it was a magical day. And then Lucky, we actually hit up, how did we connect with him? Shoot. It's just a small, because he's worked with like Nicki Minaj. I mean, everybody is so dope. So I feel really lucky, but it's all this divine path. You just sort of like follow your intuition and work with people. Some people you work with and it doesn't work out.
yeah.
And some people, like, you only have them for a short time, but it's still amazing, like how they are part of building the DNA of the world.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's like very, very, it's perfect how things come together. Like when you put your energy toward it, and all of a sudden you're like, "Oh my gosh, this is so cool."
And you can't see it. You can't see it come together until later. Like, that's why I love to journal every morning, because I like to go back. Maybe like this morning, I'll look back at December 2nd of last year and my headspace was completely different. And the only way you can see your progress really is by documenting it.
Yeah, I do the same thing too. And it is really helpful. But it's so weird because sometimes when I journal, I'm just like, I hate journaling. I don't know what to write. And it's just like I'm too afraid to look at my old journals.
Oh, it's the best. It will liberate you so much, because
Really?
you will inevitably see your progress, or you'll see something crazy cool that you observed at the time that you needed to read today. It's so weird. It's like the past you talking to the future you.
Okay, cool. I'll do that tonight. I'll look at some of my stuff and I'll have lots of whiskey on hand just in case.
Yes,
it's
whiskey.
Embarrassing. Like, oh my God, who was I?
Exactly. But it's beautiful. It's like this, you're the only one that's going to read it, hopefully,
Yeah.
unless you're Kristen Wiig in Bridesmaids. And she's like, sad handwritten book I found.
So in paper, I was reading what you wrote this year and I was wondering, did that come from a place of having to like explain like cultural appropriation accusations and things like that people have said?
It did. I want to say that paper essay came out. Oh yeah, it must have been earlier this year, right? Like February, March. And this was really, I want to say, one of my first real steps into understanding white supremacy and my privilege as a white person. This took a long time, babe. Like I went to a music school in Boston where I was in gospel choir. Like most of my friends were Black.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I was one of the good ones. I thought I was a good white person.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was It was actually the Sade in the 90s video that started a lot of these conversations about appropriation, because I had a spray tan. My hairdresser was a Black girl that day, like made my hair snatched as fuck. Like it was perfect. But I could definitely see how people who don't know me and weren't there would see that as an appropriation or appropriative behavior. And the fact that I didn't say anything when it came out. Like, I remember it getting a lot of attention because of the appropriation conversation. And I chose to stay silent, which is a big no-no. At least from the stuff I've learned this year, that's actually the most dangerous thing you can do.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, the paper essay was like the first time I acknowledged, you know, I'm a white person making Black music and trying to process how to communicate and navigate this, because we don't have that many examples of white female artists talking about this.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until Black Lives Matter erupted, like, when was that? Like this summer, that I really dove deeper finally. You know, this is something we don't have to do as white people. We don't have to deal with this at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so I took a deep dive. We stayed downtown, so we got to march in a lot of the protests. They were right outside the door. So it was like, wow, the universe really put me here right now to experience this. And it's been gentle with me, like as much as it used to hurt me. And there's like some amazing books I can share with you. You've probably already heard of them, but white fragility is a term that was invented by this author, Robin DiAngelo, where it's like the reason white people are afraid to talk about racism.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really similar to like that Midwestern guilt that we feel. And I was like, damn, if I can confront this and like make some kind of a difference, like I have to do this. Like I have to do better.
Yeah. I mean, you know, what's so interesting is that that article that came out, it was in March and it was before all of the BLM, which is interesting because like there was such like a reckoning that happened in June and July, this whole summer. And I feel like I also read that book, White Fragility, in June. And, you know, I'm mixed. I'm Mexican American, but for the first time, I also had to say, like, I have benefited from white privilege.
Right. White passing, for sure.
Right. Exactly. So it's like, it's different. I identify as Mexican American, and I think that's kind of been difficult. I mean, probably for some people, because I've been accused of, you know, using it for
sure.
For my benefit, which is really tough, and it does not feel good. So
right. That's that fragility that pops up, and it's like, it's really a personal journey. You have to sit with it. It's work. Like my favorite book, so White Fragility, awesome. Like, wow, incredible. Me and White Supremacy by Layla F. Saad is an actual workbook. So you have to go through and journal every day. Ooh, honey, it is like not easy. I've heard of like book groups where it started with like 50 people. And then by the end of the month, like nobody's left, because it's so painful and difficult for white people to do this work. And it is something that, you know, I read the book, I'm going to go back and read it again. And it's, this author, Layla, is like, it's a lifelong commitment every day to do anti-racism work. And there's a lot of different ways, and she gives real solutions and real journaling prompts that help you like dig out some of those subconscious things that you don't even know are there.
Yeah. I definitely need to order that book and check it out. And do you think, like in your case, it's more of the visuals, or do you think it's because you're a white woman who can rap?
It's the fact that I was inspired by, and basically I learned my art from Black artists. So how do we learn? We imitate, we mimic. And I guess I am doing a good job of it. Well, now I'm expressing myself as Qveen Herby. This is really the music that I fuck with and love so deeply.
Mm-hmm.
But again, as my following is increasing and there's people from different walks of life that don't even see Black people on a regular basis, and they're seeing this white girl doing Black music and like maybe like having spray tan or having my hair in braids, understanding why that's problematic or can be, and why we have to communicate that better. Otherwise it's going to get lost. Like culture vulture is a real thing. And it's not fair when women were sent home from work for having braids, for looking too ethnic.
Yeah.
And I'm just here with braids and people are like, she's amazing. It's happened multiple times over history. So I think that's a great question. I think it is the fact that I'm making Black music, and I love Black culture. I consume and I participate in it. So it's important to also give a fuck about Black people.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, who are your favorite artists?
Shoot, the list is long.
Yeah, right.
Who
Who inspires you the most?
Well, I think the reason I wanted to be a singer was Brandy. You remember the singer Brandy? The Boys'
Yes, one of my
Her
first tapes ever.
Yep. Okay, tape. Yes, tape. I have the Barbie doll. I just lived for Brandy. And that was always from the beginning too. I didn't understand at the time, but I thought it was so incredible that she had these tiny micro braids. The Brandy Barbie Mattel had to invent a new machine to make micro braids for the Brandy Barbie. Like, I remember that was a huge deal. At the time I didn't understand, what that meant, what that really meant.
Yeah.
So it's been a special journey with her. Eventually got to meet her. Like, cried so hard. It was so embarrassing. I'm glad nobody has a video of that.
She's one of the nicest people.
She really is.
Yeah.
I think what made me cry was she was like, wait, are you Karmin? And I was just like, stop. I laid up in bed listening to Never Say Never over and over and over. That album is I still have it. I mean, yeah, she's the reason I started singing. And then of course I got into anything without that parental advisory sticker.
Oh yeah.
You got to watch out for that in Nebraska. No, Jesus said no. So it was like Boys to Men, 112.
Yeah.
Oh, Lauryn Hill. Thank God they had a clean version of that album. Mm-hmm. Lauryn Hill, the miseducation of Lauryn Hill changed everything for me. And then by the time I got to college and I was exposed to all the most talented people in the world, it was like Erykah Badu. And then of course the rap was always there, but I never thought, Erin, I would be acknowledged as a rapper. Never.
When did you discover that you could and you were good at it?
I always knew I could do it. And for some reason, I assumed that anybody could just speak in rhythm, but it is so much more than speaking in rhythm. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing. Before Qveen Herby got started, I was like, all right, if we're going to make rap a part of the sound, I need to really learn the art form properly, or however that's even possible.
He loved me, he give me all his money. That Gucci Prada come be my sugar daddy. He loved me, he give me all his money. That Gucci Prada come be my sugar daddy.
So another thing I really admire about you is that in your lyrics and the things that you talk about, I feel like you're coming from such an empowering, like female positive place. Like when I listen to what you write about, I wonder, oh, is she writing for other people to hear this? Or is she kind of like talking to herself and for like listening in on this?
It feels like a little bit of both, but I will say the secret to writing a great song is really just digging into your own thing. Like, honestly, just write for you. It'd be writing a comedy sketch or something. Write it just for you. And then when you're done, be like, oh shit, am I brave enough to like put this out? That's how you'll get the ultimate honesty.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of times for me, it's a fantasy. Like Sugar Daddy, my biggest song is like, I have never been a sugar baby. I've never been like involved in that lifestyle whatsoever, but I have thoughts about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have thoughts about feminine or feminists being able to believe that it is choice. Like women can do whatever they want. And for some people that might mean like being paid for companionship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I've never done that, but I told that story and I was like, okay, am I brave enough to put this out? Yeah, I'm ready to talk about this.
I like that. I love that song. And I also like today I was even thinking about like OnlyFans, like the commodification of sex work and how OnlyFans has like really kind of like brought that to the forefront.
For sure.
And how interesting that is because it's now taking like a lot of the danger away from sex work. Right?
I like that. Yep.
Like if you like traditionally in the 80s or the 90s or something, if you're going to, you know, put yourself at risk,
yep,
you know, by the nature of how risky the job is, now it's like all you need is a laptop and you can do that and you can protect yourself and make money.
Yes.
Which I think is kind of awesome.
I'm here for that. And you know, it's not apples and oranges, but I feel the same about cannabis. I'm like, damn, it was so illegal and now it's so legal. It's like, you know, great, but now can we like talk about all the men that are in prison for selling like an ounce of weed and their kid is growing up without a father? Like, can we go back now? Can we make things possible and then go back and heal?
Yeah.
That's my hope for the coming years.
Rectify those situations, right those wrongs. I mean, what do you think about this whole student loans thing? Where people are upset about the idea of pardoning or pausing student loans because their student loans weren't forgiven.
I haven't read enough about it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a really good synopsis you just gave, but I'm like, whoa, I don't know how I feel about this. I need to make sure you do your work and like read, develop your own opinion about it. That's what I loved about this election. Like people were really into it. They were like, all right, I'm going to read all the propositions and it felt like the first time we really, and man, voting is hard. You do have to do a lot of research but this is what being in society is.
Yeah, that's adulting. That's hardcore adulting. Like looking up propositions and like your local representatives and like, who are they? Yes. Like, I know I'm going to vote for president, but like, what about these other 20 pages? Like,
and these are important, you know? I know you are. What am I?
Well, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. I wonder why I always say us. It's like, it's just me, but you know, me and the listeners.
I love you guys. Thank you so much for supporting Erin and what she does. And obviously it's a treat to be on here tonight.
Oh my gosh. I cannot wait to share this with everyone. And obviously you guys need to follow her on TikTok and Instagram. But where else should they be following you that like isn't obvious?
I mean, I always recommend following me where you are because I'm working hard to be on all the platforms. But if you're like an Instagram person, like Facebook person, I'm all up in there. So wherever you want, I do offer like different things like the live chats and eventually meditations. They'll all be in different places. So QveenHerby.com is really like the headquarters.
Aim high and I swing low. Open mind, anything goes. TLC to these silly hoes. They ain't listening to Queen and it really shows. I baptize bitches with my holy flows. I don't fuck with no chickens, only goats. Out here looking like a vegan, oh she glows. Wanna know my secrets and my antidotes. Self-care, good living. Vision board and a mission. Eat my greens, nutrition. You ain't on my vibe, then I don't gotta listen. Extra, extra, read all about it. Queen coming back with